like as an analyst in investment banking, I think your job is to just make sure that whatever deck, presentation, Excel sheet comes to you, you deliver it in time. So it is extremely long hours. Like I remember the first 3 months, every day I used to start at 9 and used to finish at 4:30, 5 a.m. in the morning. There were instances when I had slept on the floor of the office and for 2 hours, and then next morning just went home, took a shower and came back. I graduated in 2006. So good 20, close to like 18 years back, right, from NSIT in Delhi. And at that time, I was like, Acha, everybody's doing an MBA, let me also try for a CAT exam, right? And November first year, it didn't work out. Like I was still around 95 percentile plus, but it didn't work out. And then I think when I started working, I realized that, hey, I'm enjoying this. Let me enjoy this rather than just immediately go for an MBA. So I worked for 3 years. And I think at the end of it, I realized that I don't really love coding as much, but I like the entire IT space. I like to work with clients, try to sell them the what we are proposing, and try to build something for them. Right. So I thought that, okay, it might be an MBA. So there are two paths why do you want to do an MBA, right? A, you want to completely change your career path. So if you're doing coding, you want to do marketing, finance, something else, or you want to basically become take a higher level up, right? So you are a junior person giving an MBA, you basically can become a project leader or something like that.
And earn a lot of money.
Potentially, yeah, that was the intention. So I think I wanted to take this kind of path where I go for an MBA and continue working in IT services and then become a project leader, project whatever it, right? So become more like a management consultant, if that was the intention for me. But I think as soon as I and to be honest, when I gave CAT that year, that was I remember very very clearly, that was the first year when negative marking came in CAT, right? And I was like, I remember I was like, everybody teaches you यार कि मतलब जाना है तो वहाँ पे सब question करके आने, right? So I remember I'd done that. I was like, okay, I know it's negative marking, but I'm very confident. Like I'm 70% sure. Let me do this, right? And as soon as I came out, everybody's like, typically people used to attempt all 100 questions, and people had not even attempted 40% of them because there was negative marking. And I thought, nahi yaar, I did an 80% questions, and I think it was just opportune. I got like that kind of percentile, and then eventually cracked all the IIM interviews, right? So went to IMA, right? But I think as soon as you enter, I just somehow started liking finance more. I think this was just a coincidence there that, okay, hey, and like my first semester was horrible. Like it was, I was not doing like the accounting part of things. I could never understand. Like if you think around it, a lot of people get into. I'm like, for me, working in an IT job for 3 years and then going back to studying, I thought it will be easy, but it was not. You have to adapt to a different curriculum. You have to adapt to a different lifestyle completely. And during that phase, somehow I fell in love in finance, and then that journey started for me.
And you said very interestingly that when you went there in IIM Ahmedabad, your liking for finance increased. So do you think it happens because you see a lot of these people that probably who you like in the very first instance, and they are probably talking to you in the terms where they also like finance, so that influences you in making a decision, because you are still impressionable. You still are new to the entire ecosystem, and the kind of people that you interact with forms the kind of ideas that you have about the business world out there, because you haven't done it, right? Yeah. Has that happened in your case is the first question. And secondly, how difficult does it become for somebody to change the gears at an age that you were in?
So I think for me, I think if I'm obviously talking specifically to IMA, but I think it's common across any kind of B school, right? The kind of, it basically, it breaks you down, and then it basically tries to form you from scratch. I think that's how I felt at that time, that like you have to focus on the basics, but you have to do it in a very different manner. It has to be a very practical approach, the kind of case studies you do, the kind of interactions you do have, right? But the point was that every day you focus on certain aspects, but then you have a lot of homework, you have to do a lot of background studies. Like there were a lot of times where I had to put in an all-nighter, and then morning 8:45 you have to be in that class, otherwise your doors are closed, right? And the profs and everybody is like of such high caliber, the kind of quality that they want you to bring to the class, right? That you also feel a bit of an obligation ki I need to put in my 120%, 130%, right? So it's somehow, and obviously you are in the company of such high performers who have come from different background. Like so there are people from arts who actually are very great at painting or something. There are guys who have come from BCom. There are guys who have come from potentially global schools as well, because these kind of also give you opportunities to connect with a globally audience as well, right? So, but most of them were still engineers, right? A lot of them coming from IITs and other places. But so the competition also brings you up to a certain level. And I think for me, I think your question about finance, how that got triggered, right? It was again more of a coincidence, because I think when you start looking for internships, what happens is that finance consulting are the first kind of jobs or interns kind of which come on day zero. At that time it was called day zero, right? With the highly coveted kind of things, right? And everybody's vying for those, right? I was just trying to understand what is the job that they do on a day-to-day basis. Like my motivation of trying to find an internship was कि यार वहाँ पे होता क्या day to day में, right? Obviously the benefits are if you do well, you potentially can get a PPO and all. But my curiosity was that I've come from this background where I've worked for 3 years. A lot of my peers that have directly come from their undergrad.
And this we are talking about like 2 months, 3 months while you are in the system.
Correct. You just like, I think you start in June, July, and the internships are in November, right? And so they have good 3-4 months. So you obviously have some impression because there is a lot of alumni, a lot of seniors who tell you what you do. But until you get your hands dirty and do that job, you won't really understand and appreciate it. So my point was, let me at least experience what it is, right? What is the high-flying finance kind of jobs that everybody keeps talking about? Whether I like it or not, we'll figure it out. Yeah. So I think that's what I basically wanted to get into. And I think at that time I was unfortunate, whichever category you want to go at, right? I just got one shortlist on day zero, right? Only one. No consulting, only one investment bank, and that too, like I don't know how I managed to get that. And I was the first person to even like went in and cracked it, right? So people like as soon as they came back after 10 minutes because these things they start at some 7 o'clock in the morning, right? Those days, I don't know whether how it happens today. So at 7 and 7:15ish I was out and I had an offer already, and people were shocked that how this guy who had just one interview can crack it. So it was just about again my same thinking that don't focus on the outcome, focus on what is at hand, and things will fall in place if they have to. So I think that's how it started. And then I think interestingly I actually went into investment banking, but on the market side, where you basically are trading bonds, looking at global equities, interest rates, and doing a bunch of things. So I interned with JP Morgan in Singapore, where I spent good 2.5 months in their office. And this is where you have a lot of traders, a lot of like economists who are sitting together. They are talking about, hey, one interest rate in the US can have impact on the price of oil in some other geography. And I was like a little intimidated. Yeah, how is this going on and what are they talking about? But as in when you keep sitting with them, you keep talking and hearing what they are talking about, right? Your economics 101 starts falling into place. Ki nahi, I think what we were taught, there is a practical implication of that. There is obviously also price, supply and demand. But yes, it was something which was, I really felt like, yes, this is something, you feel your blood pumping here. This guy is putting $1 million worth of interest rate futures, and this will impact have that, right? So it was something which was very, very real for me, which I could like sitting next to somebody who's actually doing all these kind of transactions. But I think at the end of it, I felt that I was not made for it, like in the sense that it was more of a somebody who had to do a lot of brainstorming in terms of looking at all those interest rate environments, talking about like economics and a bunch of things, and just sitting there and doing that for like some 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock, right? And then obviously it's a great lifestyle. It's a good way to earn money. You like finish your job at 5, then you are off, you can go to gym, go to your family, and then again you start day on the next day, right? But I think for me it was always important to get deeper and deeper into how companies work, how corporates work. It was something which really fascinated me. I think once I came back from the internship, I was very sure I don't want to get into the trading side of things. But that interest in finance had suddenly kicked in for me. So I think the second year I was completely focusing on some of those aspects on how investment banking, balance sheet, and those kind of things work. And fortunately, again, in the finals placements, I got a job through UBS Investment Banking.
Tell me, Anubhav, the first time when you heard about investment banking, and after 2 years when you got all these experiences and now you're placed with UBS, what was your idea about investment banking before, and what is the idea after the 2 years that you spent was, and how did that transform you as an individual?
No, I think at the time when I got into IIM, I had no clue what investment banking is. I just knew that okay, hey, this is something in finance. You potentially trade, and there's these kind of advisors which are there who help companies in a certain manner, right? But to be honest, I was not very sure what happens, right? And I remember one of my friends who had spent 2-3 years in investment banking. She had told me that it's not as complicated as you think, and you just need to stick to the basics and you'll figure it out. I think that was the basic simple thing that she told me, right? I think at the end of it, when I was about to join UBS, again I had very little idea because I had interned on a different side of investment banking. But again, some of my friends who had interned in the investment banking side, they told me that it's very very harsh. Like it's extremely long hours. You need to look at, like, you have to continually only focus on Excel sheet and PowerPoint, and there is nothing else. I remember I used to go for lunch in my internship at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there is another friend of mine who half the time could not turn up, right? Because he was like, I need to complete this deck, right? So when I went into investment banking, I was like, again, trying to see what is going on, how things move. And then there are other guys who have spent some time on the internship, and they're already, when they came in, they are prepared that okay, this is the daily job that you have to do, this is how you have to interact with people. And I initially struggled because a lot of times initially, like as an analyst in investment banking, I think your job is to just make sure that whatever deck, presentation, Excel sheet comes to you, you deliver it in time. So it is extremely long hours. Like I remember the first 3 months, every day I used to start at 9 and I used to finish at 4:30, 5 a.m. in the morning. There were instances when I slept on the floor of the office and for 2 hours, and then next day morning just went home, took a shower and came back. Like those were the kind of days. And initially, you obviously I did not know the tricks of the trade. Here Excel may, if you have to put in some numbers, this is the best way to do it, or in a PowerPoint if you make a presentation, yeah, exactly. So this is the way, these are the kind of shortcuts that you should do, right? So I had to spend like majority of the time making sure, rectifying those kind of small errors here and there. And when you are obviously working with a prestigious kind of an institution, the kind of expectations from you are dramatically very high, right? So that they expect, hey, this person will learn on the job, but this is what I expect out of him, right? That this person is available 24/7. If they have a client meeting next day, this person will be able to turn around things overnight.